Hi, I'm Femi OK, and you're in the stream. Today, as Lebanon's rubbish crisis continues, protesters are taking on the government and calling for politicians to step down. So could this movement clean up the country's streets and politics? Malika Bilal? You stink.
Indeed.
Some background, please.
Yes. Well, first of all, this was community pitch, so our thanks to Marina Shama for this. Now, let me tell you how it began. Protesters are rallying under that hashtag Femi mentioned. The Arabic hashtag is طلعت ريحتكم, or you stink in English. Now, organizers first took to the streets in late July, and here you'll see them in downtown Beirut. The protest took a dramatic turn on August 22nd when security forces used tear gas on demonstrators. Now, as the protests have gone on, it's become about even more than just garbage, as some are demanding political reform. Of course, this is the live conversation, so we want you to join in. You can send us your thoughts with hashtag AJStream.
My name's Hamid, I sing with Mashra Layla, and I'm in the stream.
Lebanon is experiencing its largest anti-government protest movement in recent history, and it all started out over rubbish, and lots of it. The country's waste crisis re-emerged back in July when the biggest landfill, which served nearly half of the population, was shut down by local residents for being overused. Many claim the government knew this landfill was reaching maximum capacity for years, but failed to develop an alternative. Instead, garbage was being distributed around empty spaces, many located near residential areas and forests. Mountains of it began piling up on pavements and street corners. Angry Lebanese started taking to the streets under the slogan, "You stink," to demand solutions. And with the government failing to act, the protests quickly turned into a movement challenging the country's politicians who've been in political deadlock for more than a year. That means that there's been no president since May 2014, and Parliament has extended its term twice without elections. The You Stink campaign has struck a chord in Lebanese society. Many people have been coping with daily electricity cuts, water shortages, and poor road conditions for decades. So, with wide public support, how much change can this movement actually achieve? To help us talk about this, we're joined by Hussein Abdul Hussein. He's the Washington bureau chief of the Kuwaiti newspaper Al Rai. Joey Ayoub is a journalist and activist who's been attending the protests in Beirut. Jana Nakal is an activist who's been at the protests. And Rudy Spurden is an activist who has been participating in the protests as well. Good to have you all here. Rudy, there's a story that the stream put out, 2 years ago. Have a look here on my laptop. Lebanon's garbage standoff 2 years ago here. Let me just scroll down a little bit. You can see, I think these are going to be very familiar pictures. And then this date here, January the 20th, 2014. So this problem with the rubbish just piling up and up and up, this is nothing new. So what started out the You Stink protests?
Well, first of all, we all know, the viewers don't know yet, but we have a huge crisis of corruption on every route of government in the state and throughout. And I think with the postponement of the elections twice, because the ministers couldn't agree on that yet, so they can't agree on anything. So I think what happened now is that with the new renewal of the contracts for garbages, they couldn't agree again, and we have this crisis that has become static. It hasn't been fixed yet.
See, Joey, I've been looking at some of the pictures. They're kind of unbelievable that people are living in areas and there's literally just rubbish being dumped absolutely everywhere. Can you give us a sense of what it's like to live in Beirut with this crisis right now?
Well, yeah, it's obviously quite disgusting, and I tend to say that what's basically happening now is that we have a concrete representation of the system we live in. We actually see the trash in front of us, and we kind of feel that this is the system. We are living in a system of garbage, basically. It makes a lot of sense in Arabic, actually.
Yeah, people online are reiterating that point and talking about what it is like to live there, I want to share 2 tweets. This one's from Dayala. She says, upcoming winter brings rain and risks of serious toxic diseases, and seeing our waste and our filth laid out in front of us has been the catalyst to these protests. And someone else picked up on that. This is Kareem. He says, it's being said everywhere, but it is safe to say that the garbage crisis is the straw that broke the camel's back. So Jannah, we know that these protests started in a small village next to this dump that's in question, but then they spread. What led to that spread?
First of all, I'm happy, I'm practically happy to see the garbage in the streets, because people can now feel the problem. They can see it, they can smell it, they can live it. This problem has the people in these villages that you're talking about in Barja and around it. They've been feeling and living with these problems, with the cancer, with their lands being polluted for years now, and nobody speaks. But now people in the capital at last can know that this is what they've been producing, and this is what they've been sending out to the villages in the regions.
See, Jannah, this is disgusting. I mean, if you're just watching this internationally, why is the rubbish not being picked up? I mean, there's some very basic failures happening here. Where's the rubbish going?
The rubbish is actually being hidden around. What's funny is that the government is acting like thieves, like thugs. Each day, people wake up in the morning in villages around Lebanon, in small cities around Lebanon, finding garbage put here and there. Many villages and many cities have had now civil, how do you call it, like sentinel. To watch the main entrances of their cities, to see if garbage trucks from the government are coming in to dump Beirut garbage around. So yeah, this is how the government acts with us, because this is how it sees us. It sees us as people unable to. No, people unable to say no, actually, and that they can do anything that they want without us raising a voice. And this is changing.
Let me just give some background, Jannah, here about how this started. I think there's a big dumpster called An-Na'mi to the south of Beirut, and one of the oligarchs of Lebanon, Walid Jumblat, the leader of the Druze, lobbied for this dumpster to be shut down, and garbage stopped going to this central dumpster, and now it's showing up at the doorsteps of every village and city around the country, which is which provoked everyone to go out to the streets and talk against it, which is justified to my mind. But the question is, because you guys have brought up problems that are bigger, you're saying that the garbage is the catalyst for a much bigger problem. If this is the case, then how can a small player in the Lebanese political scene, like Environment Minister Mohammed Mashnou, be the solution? If this guy steps down, he's much more smaller than a much bigger problem.
So you're saying this isn't about, because I'm looking at these pictures, and if I lived there, this would be about garbage as far as I'm concerned. But you're saying it's more than that. It's not a, how do we solve, where do we put our rubbish? Jannah?
Of course.
Yeah, go on. Of course, what?
Sorry, can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
The garbage is the end product of what we are living in. I mean, the garbage is just an indicator of the way we have been living. We have basically the fact that we have no basic rights. So there's no electricity cuts, water cuts. The garbage has been like it's what actually
that's exactly what I'm saying.
Had led people to the streets.
It's just the face of a much bigger problem. And these guys are now going after the cabinet. And the reason why I'm not fully supporting or endorsing this movement is that I don't think the government is the biggest culprit in this. I think the government, like everybody else, is the victim of a much bigger problem. inside
Which
the
is
Lebanon.
what?
So Joey, I want to go to you because I hear you wanting to jump in, but picking up on what Hussein said about the environment minister maybe being the wrong place to place this anger, I want to take a look at this little video. This is posted on Instagram, and this is what people are doing in addition to showing their anger, in addition to going to the streets. So you see them here, they have their bags of trash, and they're going outside the headquarters of the prime minister. So this is basically directly doing what Hussein said, is taking the issue to a bigger player.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually more, I mean, no offense, but it's actually more complicated than that, than how he's describing it. First of all, the main reason why we're throwing, the images that you saw that we're throwing in front of the Sarai, the prime minister's location, is because they shut down the location around parliament. Actually, one of our first actions was to try and enter parliament, and this is when things got very violent, although we were completely non-violent from the very beginning.
That's right.
And I wanted to just add, because it's very important to know the details here. It's not, as our guest said, that we're basically dealing with a bunch of thieves here, because we have managed to follow the government trucks from place to place. When they said that they were cleaning up from one place to another, we just followed the trucks, and we saw where they were dumping it. And they were dumping it next to the sea, they were dumping it in forest, they were dumping it even in forest reserves, and they were dumping it in poor neighborhoods, taking it from middle class and throwing it into the working class.
Joey, let me ask you.
So this was what affected everything to begin with.
Joey, if you were the government, what would you have done, given that the central dumpster was shut down? And this is what you have. You either leave the garbage.
Quite simple. First, I wouldn't have
keep the garbage in
extended
the
my own
streets.
term twice.
But that's not garbage, Joey.
I can jump in here.
That's the government. You asked about the government, and you asked what I would have done if I was the government.
On the garbage issue, I'm asking, if you were the government,
There's a very simple
how
solution.
would you deal with the garbage issue, given what you have at hand right now?
Well, we've had environmental experts being in contact with the government since the very beginning. Even before the protest has been beginning, we've had people just talking to the government over and over again.
Saying
but
what?
as I'm sure you well know, there are powerful
saying what,
interests at stake that don't want easy solutions to this situation.
Can I jump in here?
So hold tight for a moment, because Rudy wants to jump in, and Joey, to be honest, this is an interesting question. Where would you put the rubbish?
Where would I put the rubbish?
Yeah, that's what Hussein was asking.
Yeah, well,
What
I
would
mean,
you
one
do?
of the first actions that we have been proposing and are still proposing is to take things back to a municipality level. So each municipality would basically be the one taking care of its own rubbish. Each of them, if one municipality can't do it, they can do it in a coalition, obviously.
So do you think the municipalities would have somewhere to put the rubbish that the government hasn't found yet?
Sorry,
well, it's not a matter of location. First of all, the reason why we have this huge amount of rubbish in the first place is because we don't have recycling at the source. We have about, I think, like 6 or 8% of recycling in Lebanon. So there are many things that can be done on a whole-scale level that aren't being done.
All right, let me just bring in Rudy. Rudy, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say what Joey said to answer the simple question of what would government do. So, and first of all, they can find a solution. We have a lot of competent people here who can contribute. And the solution that Jenna mentioned, which is what the activists and organizers have been proposing, was that to decentralize the solution from central government to giving the responsibilities back to municipalities. And right now, there's funds that are usually allocated for municipalities to manage that, and they're not released yet. So that would be the solution for the short term. And the long run, there's all this talk about doing the things we should have done decades ago, which is to to triage the garbage and all that and recycle it. That would reduce the size of landfills by 80%. That's one of the numbers I heard.
Jonna?
Yes, the main problem was created because actually the government has done something illegal, which is giving the responsibility of garbage dumping to a private company, and the whole contract with the private company is pretty much suspected to be a huge corruption file, meaning we were paying the most expensive ton per it was the most expensive ton of garbage in the world. No, there was no.
Do you mean Suklin, Jana? Is the
yes,
company
yes,
Suklin?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot to mention the name of the company was Suklin. Also, there was practically no assessment, and nobody used to follow up on what is going on with the garbage. Right. In the contract, there was supposed to be recycling. There was even the landfill itself needed to have different requirements and different specifications, which Suklin didn't follow. So yeah, this is where the problem started. What we are demanding now is for it to become what the law says, to go back to the municipalities. Most of the municipalities are standing with us on this. A lot of the municipalities have started recycling, either by the source, at the source, or by triage. So yeah, there is this call to go back to the municipalities.
Okay, guests, let me show you something here, really for our audience around the world as well. This is from our sister channel, AJ Plus, and they worked out in a very small little snippet of information how to explain Lebanon's political system. Let's have a listen.
The tiny country is made up of 18 different sects, and its political system is designed to give nearly all of them a say. Since Lebanon's independence, the country's leadership positions have been divided between the three main sects. Lebanon's president must be a Maronite Christian, the prime minister a Sunni, and the speaker of the House a Shia. Seats in parliament are also based on sectarian proportioning, with each sect receiving a set number of seats in the political body. Lebanese citizens can only vote for candidates from the specific sects that are designated for their district. This sort of system often leads to a political stalemate and sometimes even violence. So
So you have this very complicated political system, and then you have an infrastructure problem like trying to get rid of your rubbish. What is our community saying about this, Malika?
Well, they're saying it's because specifically of that political system that we're probably not going to see change even with these protests. So you have Mahranisa tweeting in saying, even if Lebanon's environmental minister steps down, that is a step, but it's not a solution to a larger accountability problem. So Hussein, I want to bring you in there. She's talking about the root problem here, and she doesn't think that it's just the garbage.
I totally agree. First of all, even the garbage, the company Jana just mentioned, Suklin, they got their contract probably over 15 years ago. So it's not this cabinet that gave them the contract. Now, granted, this cabinet can do a better performance in auditing or maybe supervising whatever Suklin is supposed to do. But again, because the guys brought up the issue of extending the mandate of the parliament twice. And I think that goes way beyond the two Mashnou's, because there's another minister, the interior minister, who's also a Mashnou. It goes beyond these guys. And the cabinet, since the end of the tenure of the president, Michel Suleiman, last year, the cabinet is an interim cabinet anyway. If this cabinet steps down now and resigns, it will remain in its present capacity as interim. So really, I mean, these guys are asking the small players on the Lebanese political scene to do things that are really beyond their capacity, and that's my take, against most of the things that they're saying.
Joey?
I mean, I'm sorry, but it's quite extraordinary to say that we're asking them to do what's beyond their capacity. We're literally just asking them to do their job. A very simple way of calming all of these things down would have been, instead of treating us as some sort of foreign invasion, which is some of the words that I've been hearing from the political class, just listen to us. It's really not that complicated at the end of the day.
It's the easiest solution.
But they're not, Joey. The Environment Ministry has probably less than 10 employees. It has probably the smallest budget, and the Environment Minister is not in charge of garbage per se. He headed one of the committees that the cabinet formed to deal with garbage, but it's not within his prerogative to deal with it anyway. And since you're talking about the political class, I don't think Tamam Salam is a big player in the political class. The sects that this snippet just mentioned, the leaders of these sects are not in this cabinet. They are the ones I'm calling the oligarchy. They're outside of it, and they're not being harmed by this. And I think, the battle now is over the small guys, whereas the big guys are just watching and probably cheering sometimes.
See, Rudy, you're out there protesting. What are you hoping to get out of the protests right now? How successful do you think they will be, just to clean up the streets?
Just a second. Did Janet have anything important to say, or should I answer the question?
I think the audience would like to know how
polite.
Yeah, I think the audience would like to know around the world. I would think how successful you might be about cleaning up the streets. The living conditions that you're living in are kind of horrific.
Go on, Rudy, please.
Okay, so repeat the question, please. Sorry.
Jana, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just trying to say that in a way, I agree with Hussein when he says that they're not really the players. We're not fighting the big guys. We're not. I mean, when we're attacking Mashnu or Tamam Salam or any member of the governments, they're not really the ones who've made this happen. The one who've made this happen are really the warlords. The warlords, which since the 70s, since 75, have been the ones who destroyed this country. And who are still now, till now, are still controlling these the puppets. So the aim of this, we basically all know, but maybe some people don't. The demonstrations are being led by different and diverse groups. Most of the groups different groups have different demands. But what I personally see is that the main demand and the main aim of this movement would be, or the first one, would be to work for a better election law, which would allow people to have better representatives, better representation outside the sectarian / religious belonging. This would totally break the rule of the religious political parties in Lebanon.
Right. Malika?
I wanted to give this thought, ending this conversation in the main show, from Jessie, and she says, listening to the people and being held responsible for the lack of actions and corruptions is a start. Garbage first, the rest will follow.
Joey, you're nodding your head.
Sorry, if I may,
go ahead.
This would have been my point from the very beginning, is that we are actually trying to focus on something that we feel we can tackle. As I said at the very beginning, we tried to tackle the system as a whole through the representation of the parliament. And this is when we were violently oppressed. Beaten up, basically. We know that we are dealing with a whole system. We know that we are dealing with a decades-old system that is basically structuralized to function in the way it is. What we are trying to do, and by we, I'm obviously abusing the word we here. I'm talking about myself and many of my compatriots.
Right.
What we are trying to do is to try and kind of put some crack in the system and trying to bring some accountability in the system so that in the long term it might make a difference.
Yeah. All right. So Joe, Ayub, and Jana, and Rudy, and Hussein, we're taking you all to the post show at stream.aljazeera.com. We're not done talking about Lebanon politics and also the You Stink protest, but putting on a hold on it for now because I want to tell you about a brand new show coming to Al Jazeera with a host that I do feel you may actually recognize. Hello, Mehdi Hassan.
Hello, Femi.
So this new show, Up Front, on Fridays, 1930 GMT. When you're selling it to guests, what are you telling them that they're in for?
What are we telling them that they're in for? Very good question. My excellent team of producers tells them that it's a chance to come on a very new dynamic show in an excellent studio in one of the best cities in the world, Washington, D.C., to talk about the big stories of the week and to really challenge the conventional wisdom.
See, that very first guest, though, it's important because you have to entice the audience in. Your first guest, I know it's not a secret, but tell us about that first guest and why you wanted
We were very pleased with our first guest, who you can see on Friday. He's been described as the world's most wanted man, and so we wanted to launch our show with him. The problem is he's thousands of miles away and can't travel to the United States. He's Edward Snowden, the NSA whistleblower who is living in exile in Moscow, but he joined us via the miracle of the internet in this studio, and we did a fascinating interview with a man who is very enigmatic, but also very eloquent.
The government may be able to prevent me from physically returning home to the United States, engaging with people in person, but the ultimate result of that, because of advances in technology, means I can't shop at Walmart, but I can still lecture at Princeton.
See, Mehdi, what's the difference between upfront and head-to-head? Because head-to-head is incredibly rigorous, and guests really have to kind of come in with their flat jackets on. What's different about upfront?
I think what's different about Upfront is it's a much more newsy show. We're going to be looking at the big stories of the week. And also it gives me a chance to be not just robust, but also a little bit more conversational. I got to chat with Edward Snowden about his pastimes, about his hobbies, about what movies he's going to watch. Does he have a subscription to Netflix? You can watch the interview and find out.
So a couple of things I'm interested in, a couple of segments. Reality check, last word. Tell us about those.
The reality check is all about doing some myth busting, Femi. We see so many lies, so much misinformation out there, sadly, and I've decided weekly to try and rebut some of it.
So have a look here on my laptop. There's coming up 1900 GMT. That's just before Friday's first edition of Upfront. There's a Twitter chat here with Mehdi. If you have things that you want to ask him, then you have to be on this Twitter chat. You'll find it on the AJ Upfront Twitter handle. Mehdi, good luck.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you're very welcome. I will be glued to my TV screen. Fridays, 19:30 GMT. See you there. Meanwhile, let me take you online to the post-show for the stream at stream.aljazeera.com. Thanks for watching. See you there. Hello again, this is the Stream's online post show. We've been talking about Lebanon's ongoing waste crisis and the country's largest anti-government protest movement in recent history. I am just curious, Joey, about the reaction that you've been getting from the current administration and also Rudy and Jannah. Rudy, how's the government been reacting to these protests?
They have been doing some mistakes. I mean, they've been reacting and not reacting. They don't know what they want exactly. They've been violent. They've been non-responsive, obviously. We've seen all the scenes of police brutality and excessive force used on protesters. And yeah.
Jannah?
Yes. Actually, we spent the first night of clashes and demonstrations, Rudy and I, running away and then running into the fights and the gas, the tear gas. This is the first time, as much as I heard from older activists, this is the first time the Lebanese government uses this amount of violence since 1973. So since even before the Civil War. I've never, I've been involved and going down to demonstrations since 2009. I've never seen police and army treating us this way, not only with arms,
I was there, Jannah,
looking at us
in
in this way.
1996, and when the Labour Federation called for a strike, and we were beaten in the streets. I was there in 97 when On was censored off of MTV. We were beaten on the streets.
Yes.
So it's just.
Yes, I know that in the 90s.
I'm just saying this is how rallies happen. They just people are angry.
I know,
the police are trying to handle them.
Yeah, but the amount of violence and the amount,
Sorry.
they were using light ammunition. Sorry, Joey?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's let Jannah finish her sentence. Let's let Jannah finish her sentence first, and then you can come in, Joey.
Okay,
go ahead, Jannah.
So yeah, I was talking about the amount of violence. Definitely, a lot of times they do use violence. The amount of violence and the amount of arms that was used against us, and even at a lot of times nobody would attack them, and they would start attacking us. The first time it happened, the tear gas were shot at us with babies and toddlers running around us.
That was horrific,
and this was the most shocking image for me in this whole movement since it started.
Joey?
Yeah, no, it's actually just to add on what they were saying. I completely agree, and I was also somewhere around them. Actually, we didn't see each other, but I was there as well. And the amount of violence that we received wasn't just about, it's not like they were defending themselves against actually violent people. We have video footage of all of that, and this is what made the scandal to begin with. They were shooting tear gas haphazardly into malls and just into large crowds of people. Old ladies were being tear gassed. My own mom was tear gassed. I was beaten and tear gassed. People were just being violently oppressed for absolutely no reason. We were completely peaceful. Everything was filmed from beginning to end. And I say everything was filmed because the press was attacked as well. So everyone saw what we were saying as well.
Malika?
Well, it's interesting hearing that difference of scenarios, really, from what happened in the 80s, what's happening now. I want to take this to Twitter, where someone kind of makes a similar comparison. This is Diala, and she says, the widest base of support for these protests we're seeing now, the You Stink movement, is the under 30s, those who didn't experience civil war and have the least attachment to these leaders. Yeah. And she goes on to say the reluctance of the 40 plus to join in is due to the fear of political vacuum, particularly with armed strength of Hezbollah. She mentions the armed group there. So I did want to hear two generations' view of that. Do you want to give me your
I totally agree with Diala. I think she's a smart person and she completely nailed it. We're being more realistic, and these guys, they're
you mean we're not smart?
No, I mean you too. But I think the point that she raises is a good one, of course. And yes, I am skeptical of a political vacuum. I think the state is very weak anyway, and the last thing you need is to make it sink more at this point.
But I disagree about the generation thing. I'd like to jump in here.
I think Rudy is the one that disagreed the most and the loudest. So Rudy, what did you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, maybe those on the street were 30-somethings or under 30s because maybe they have the most energy and they can handle tear gas. And during the first protest, the first large one where there was 15,000 people, there was people of all ages, from all social environments. It really didn't matter. There was grandmothers there. I remember one of the grandmothers joked about Jana's banner. And they got tear gassed, and their babies got tear gassed. So in the protest ones after that, we had only young people. My sister wanted to jump in. My mother wanted to join me when one of the protests, the last one, the one on Saturday, where there was 50,000 plus people. I told her, stay home. It's not worth getting tear gassed. So I think the young people we're seeing on the streets, these are representing a larger strata of society from all generations. And if those who are older weren't comfortable with the idea at first, I can guarantee you that most of the people of my parents' generation, at least, are giving me full support with my activism. So I just like to give my view on that.
I can concur with that as well.
Guess I want to share something here with you just to wrap up this conversation for now, and that's an Instagram page that we found. And let me just click on it here, and you can see all the different kinds of people who are hitting the streets. And it says here, we may be different, and then wait for it, but we agree on one thing. Wait for a bit longer. You stink. So there's a sort of sense of unity in this protest that maybe has brought people together in Lebanon that nothing else has managed to do.
True, that is over garbage only.
Yeah, okay, baby steps.
This is true.
All right.
So not only garbage, excuse me, I'd like to jump in again.
Yeah, we're wrapping up, Rudy. What's your last line?
One more, just half a minute, even less.
One sentence would be good.
It's not only garbage because once winter comes in, once the winter is coming, to give the Game of Thrones reference in the protests, when the water comes to that garbage and goes through the soil, it's going to be an environmental crisis. When you see someone on Facebook shared this idea that when you see rodents on the street, they don't care about Hezbollah, they don't care about foreign policy. Garbage is a big deal right now, and it's the most urgent issue, even if we have other ambitions about this movement.
Yeah. So Rudy, Jana, Joey and Hussein, thank you for your insights today into the You Stink protest. Really appreciate it. Take care.